Welcome to English Listening Practice. I'm Taylor, and over the next 30 minutes, we're going to dramatically improve your ability to understand real English conversations. This episode is designed for B1 to C1 learners who want to bridge the gap between textbook English and the way native speakers actually talk. Today's episode features 5 different listening passages, each with a unique challenge. You'll hear different accents, various speeding speeds, and authentic language, including idioms, phrasal verbs, and connected speech. After each passage, I'll guide you through comprehension questions and highlight key vocabulary. Here's a pro tip. Don't worry if you don't understand everything on the first listen. Native speakers often miss things too. Focus on getting the main ideas first, then the details will come with practice. Let's warm up your ears with a quick exercise. I'll say a sentence at normal speed, then break it down. Ready? What are you going to do when you've finished? Did you catch that? Let me say it slowly. What are you going to do when you have finished? Notice how in natural speech, what are becomes whatter, going to becomes gonna, and you have becomes you've. This is the real English we're practicing today. Our first listening passage is a conversation between 2 colleagues discussing a job interview. You'll hear British and American accents mixed together. Listen for the main points. How did the interview go? What challenges did they face? What's the next step? Here we go. Marcus, American. Hey, Sophie, I've been dying to hear. How'd your interview go yesterday? Sophie, British. Oh, Marcus, it was intense, to say the least. I was there for nearly 3 hours. Marcus, American. 3 hours? That's insane. What did they have you doing? Building a rocket? Sophie, British. Laughs. Felt like it. First, there was the panel interview, 4 people firing questions at me, then a technical test, and finally a presentation I had to prepare on the spot. Marcus, American. Whoa, talk about putting you through your paces. How'd you handle the pressure? Sophie, British. The panel interview went brilliantly, actually. They asked about my experience with project management, and I used that STAR method you taught me. You know, the situation, task, action, result. They seemed really impressed when I talked about the Morrison account turnaround. Marcus, American. That's awesome. I knew that would come in handy. What about the technical test? Sophie, British. That's where things got a bit dodgy. They threw in some curveball questions about software I haven't used in years. I was honest about it, though, said I'd need to brush up, but that I'm a quick learner. Marcus, American. Honesty is always the best policy. They probably appreciated that. And the presentation? Sophie, British. They gave me 30 minutes to prepare a pitch for a hypothetical client. My hands were literally shaking, but once I got going, I found my rhythm. I even made them laugh a couple of times. Marcus, American. That's huge. Humor can really seal the deal. When will you hear back? Sophie, British. They said early next week. The waiting is going to kill me. The head of department mentioned they're interviewing 12 people for just 2 positions. Marcus, American. 12 for 2? That's rough competition. But hey, you've got this. You're exactly what they're looking for. Sophie, British. Thanks, Marcus. Fingers crossed. If I don't get it, at least it was brilliant practice. The feedback alone was worth it. Marcus, American. That's the spirit. Want to grab coffee and debrief properly? I want to hear every detail. Sophie, British. Absolutely. Your treat if I get the job? Marcus, American, laughs. Deal. But I'm confident I'll be buying that coffee. Okay, let's check your comprehension. Think about these questions. First, how long was Sophie's interview? The answer? Nearly 3 hours. Second, What 3 components did the interview have? Answer: a panel interview, a technical test, and a presentation. Third, how many positions are available and how many people are interviewing? Answer: 2 positions, 12 candidates. Let's look at some key phrases. Dying to hear means very eager to know something. Put through your paces means to test someone's abilities thoroughly. Dodgy, British slang meaning uncertain or risky. Curveball questions, unexpected, difficult questions. Seal the deal, finalize something successfully. Notice the connected speech. How'd your interview go? How did becomes how'd. Going to kill me. Going to becomes gonna. Now let's challenge ourselves with a news report. This features more formal language and technical vocabulary. Listen for what new technology is being discussed. What are its benefits? What concerns are raised? Good evening. Tonight, we're examining a groundbreaking development in carbon capture technology that could revolutionize our approach to climate change. Our science correspondent, Jennifer Walsh, has this special report. Thank you, Richard. I'm here at the University of Cambridge, where researchers have unveiled what they're calling a game changer in the fight against global warming. The team, led by Professor David Chen, has developed a new material that can absorb CO2 from the atmosphere at unprecedented rates. Professor Chen, what we've created is essentially a super sponge for carbon dioxide. Our metal organic framework, or MOF, can capture CO2 molecules while allowing other gases to pass through freely. What's particularly exciting is that it works at room temperature and requires minimal energy to release the captured CO2 for storage. The implications are staggering. Current carbon capture technologies are energy-intensive and expensive, limiting their widespread adoption. This new material could reduce costs by up to 75% while increasing efficiency threefold. However, not everyone's convinced. Dr. Sarah Martinez from the Environmental Policy Institute raises some concerns. Dr. Martinez, while this technology is undoubtedly impressive, we need to be cautious about viewing it as a silver bullet. There's a risk that breakthrough technologies like this could be used to justify continued fossil fuel consumption rather than addressing the root cause of emissions. We call this the moral hazard problem. The research team acknowledges these concerns, but argues that we need every tool available in our climate arsenal. Professor Chen, we're facing a climate emergency that requires both immediate emission reductions and active removal of existing atmospheric CO2. This technology doesn't replace renewable energy or conservation efforts, it complements them. We're looking at scaling up production and, if successful, we could see industrial applications within 3 to 5 years. The technology has already attracted significant investment. Tech billionaire James Morrison announced a $500 million fund specifically for carbon capture technologies, with this Cambridge team receiving the first major grant. The question now isn't whether this technology works, it clearly does. The challenge is scaling it up quickly enough to make a meaningful impact on global emissions. For BBC News, I'm Jennifer Walsh in Cambridge. Fascinating developments there. Coming up after the break, let's test your understanding. What type of material did the researchers develop? A metal organic framework, or MOF, that acts like a super sponge for CO2. What's the cost reduction potential of this technology? Up to 75% cost reduction. What concern does Dr. Martinez raise? The moral hazard problem that this technology might justify continued fossil fuel use. Key vocabulary. Game changer. Something that completely changes how something is done. Unprecedented. Never seen or done before. Staggering. Shocking or amazing. Silver bullet, a simple solution to a complex problem. Moral hazard, when protection from risk encourages riskier behavior. This next passage is a customer service call with background noise, interruptions, and informal language. Listen for, what's the customer's problem? What solutions are offered? How is it resolved?
Good afternoon, Tech Support Plus. This is Raj speaking. How may I assist you today? Hi there, Raj. I'm having a nightmare with my internet connection. It's been cutting in and out all week, and I work from home, so this is really affecting my livelihood. I completely understand how frustrating that must be, sir. Let me pull up your account. Can I have your account number or the phone number associated with your service? Sure, it's 555-0147. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Thompson, I can see your account here. You're on our premium fiber plan, is that correct? That's right, yeah. Premium's a bit of a joke though, considering the service lately. I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. I can see there have been some intermittent connectivity issues logged. Let me run a diagnostic on your line. While that's running, can you tell me when these disconnections typically occur? It's totally random. Sometimes it's fine for hours, then boom, drops out for like 10-15 minutes. Yesterday, it happened right in the middle of a presentation to clients. I look like a complete amateur. That's absolutely unacceptable, and I'm truly sorry that happened. The diagnostic is showing some signal degradation on your line. Mr. Thompson, have you noticed any construction work in your area recently? Actually, yeah. They've been digging up the road about 2 blocks away. You think that's related? It's very possible. Construction can sometimes damage underground cables. I'm seeing here that there's a reported infrastructure issue in your area that's scheduled for repair. However, I don't want you to wait any longer. I have 2 immediate solutions for you. I'm all ears. First, I can send a technician to your property tomorrow between 2 and 4 p.m. to check your internal connections and potentially reroute your service through a different line. Second, as compensation for this inconvenience, I'd like to offer you a portable 5G hotspot free of charge until your main connection is stable. We'll also credit your account for the past week of service issues. Oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. The hotspot would be a lifesaver. Can you guarantee it'll work better than my current connection? The 5G hotspot provides a completely independent connection, so it won't be affected by the cable issues. It should give you speeds of 50 to 100 Mbps, which is perfect for video calls and regular work. I can have it couriered to you today for arrival by 6 p.m. That's actually fantastic, Raj. And the technician tomorrow? Yes, sir. They'll do a comprehensive check and have authorization to implement any fixes needed at no charge to you. You'll also receive a text an hour before they arrive. Is 2 to 4 p.m. suitable? Perfect. Raj, you've turned my whole day around. I was ready to cancel everything and switch providers. We absolutely don't want to lose you as a customer, Mr. Thompson. Your satisfaction is our priority. The hotspot will arrive today, the technician tomorrow, and you'll see a credit of $89.99 on your next bill. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, that's everything. Thanks for actually listening and solving the problem, instead of just reading from a script. It's my pleasure, sir. You'll receive an email confirmation of everything we've discussed. Have a wonderful day.
Comprehension check. What's been happening with the customer's internet? Cutting in and out intermittently all week. What 2 solutions did Raj offer? A technician visit tomorrow and a free 5G hotspot delivered today. What compensation will the customer receive? An $89.99 credit on a next bill. Useful phrases. Having a nightmare. Experiencing serious problems. I'm all ears. I'm listening carefully. Turn something around. Completely change a situation. Reading from a script, giving rehearsed, impersonal responses. This passage is from a university lecture on behavioral economics. It features academic vocabulary, complex ideas, and a Scottish accent. Listen for the main theory being explained and the examples used.
Right then, continuing our exploration of cognitive biases, today we're examining what's arguably the most pervasive bias affecting human decision-making, the availability heuristic. Now, before we dive deep, can anyone recall what we mean by heuristic? No? Well, a heuristic is essentially a mental shortcut, a rule of thumb our brains use to make quick decisions without extensive analysis. Usually these serve us well, but sometimes they lead us astray. The availability heuristic, first identified by Tversky and Kahneman in the 1970s, describes our tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events that come easily to mind. In other words, if you can readily recall examples of something happening, you'll think it's more common than it actually is. Let me illustrate with a classic example. Which do you think causes more deaths annually in the United States? Shark attacks or falling aeroplane parts? Most people immediately say shark attacks. Why? Because shark attacks make headlines. They're dramatized in films. They're memorable and frightening. But here's the thing. Statistically, you're 30 times more likely to be killed by falling aeroplane parts. The availability heuristic has skewed your risk assessment. This bias has profound implications for how we navigate modern life. Consider how media coverage affects our perception of crime. Despite crime rates falling consistently over the past 3 decades in most developed nations, surveys show people believe crime is increasing. Why? Because every violent crime gets extensive media coverage, making these events highly available in our memory. The business world exploits this bias constantly. Insurance companies know that after highly publicized natural disasters, people overestimate the risk and purchase more coverage than statistically warranted. Marketing teams use vivid testimonials rather than statistics because personal stories are more available to our memory than abstract numbers. But here's where it gets really interesting and somewhat concerning. Social media has essentially weaponized the availability heuristic.
Algorithms show us content similar to what we've previously engaged with, creating echo chambers where certain types of information become hyper-available while others virtually disappear. This doesn't just affect our shopping habits, it shapes our political views, our understanding of social issues, even our perception of what's normal or acceptable behaviour. So, how do we combat this bias? Well, awareness is the first step. Simply knowing about the availability heuristic helps you recognise when it might be influencing your judgment. Second, actively seek out base rate information, actual statistics rather than memorable anecdotes. Third, and this is crucial, diversify your information sources. If all your information comes from similar sources, you're amplifying the bias rather than correcting for it. Remember, our brains evolved for a world where immediate, memorable dangers were often the most serious threats. A rustling in the bushes that might be a predator deserved our full attention. But in today's information-saturated world, the most available information isn't necessarily the most accurate or important.
Let's check your understanding. What is the availability heuristic? The tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events that easily come to mind. What example shows people are 30 times more at risk than they think? Falling airplane parts cause more deaths than shark attacks. How does social media amplify this bias? Algorithms create echo chambers by showing similar content repeatedly. Academic vocabulary. Pervasive. Present everywhere. Rule of thumb. Practical guideline. Lead astray. Cause to make errors. Skewed. Distorted or biased. Warranted. Justified or necessary. Echo chambers. Environments where similar views are reinforced. Our final passage is the most challenging. A casual conversation between 4 friends at a restaurant with overlapping speech, interruptions, and colloquialisms. Listen for what are they planning? What disagreement occurs? Guys, before we order, can we please sort out Lisa's birthday thing? It's in 2 weeks and we've literally done nothing. Oh shoot, that's right. Wasn't Tom supposed to? Hey, don't pin this on me. I said I'd help, not organize the whole thing. Classic Tom. Okay, let's think. What about that escape room place downtown? Lisa's always going on about wanting to try one. Ooh, that's actually perfect. She mentioned it again last week. But wait, how many people are we talking? Well, there's us 4, obviously. Then her sister, her boyfriend. Don't forget the work crowd. She's pretty tight with them now. Whoa, hold up. If we invite the work people, we're looking at like 15, maybe 20 people. Escape rooms max out at what, 8? 6, actually. I checked their website last month for my cousin's thing. So that's out then. Unless we could book multiple rooms and make it a competition. Now you're talking. That would be epic! Losing team buys drinks after. I don't know, guys. That sounds super complicated to coordinate. Plus, it's gonna cost a fortune. These places are like $40 a head. Olivia's got a point. What if we just did something low-key? Dinner somewhere nice, then drinks at that new rooftop bar.
Boring. It's her 30th, not her 60th. We need to do something memorable. What about, pause for effect, surprise karaoke party? Tom, no. What? She loves karaoke. She loves doing karaoke when she's drunk with just us, not in front of her boss and colleagues. Can you imagine? Surprise! Now sing Bohemian Rhapsody in front of everyone you professionally respect. Okay, back to the drawing board. What about a weekend trip? We could do that wine tour and... Jake, be realistic. People have jobs. No one can just disappear for a weekend with 2 weeks' notice. Wait, I've got it. What about a themed party at Tom's place? His apartment's huge. We could fit everyone. Absolutely not. Last time we had a party at mine, someone put a hole in my wall and my neighbors nearly called the cops. That was one time, and technically that was Dave's fault, not ours. Guys, we're overthinking this. Lisa's pretty chill. She'd probably be happy with just... Oh my God, Lisa just texted me. She says, and I quote, "I know you idiots are planning something. Please, nothing crazy. Dinner and drinks is perfect." Well, that settles that then. How did she even know? Maybe because you've been acting super weird around her all week. I have not. Yes, you have.
Final comprehension check. What occasion are they planning for? Lisa's 30th birthday. Why did they reject the escape room idea? Too many people. Rooms only hold 6. They'd have 15 to 20 guests. What did Lisa request via text? Answer: nothing crazy, just dinner and drinks. Colloquial expressions. Going on about. Talking repeatedly about something. Tight with. Close friends with. Hold up. Wait a minute. Low key. Simple, understated. Back to the drawing board. Start planning again. Pretty chill. Very relaxed. Excellent work making it through all 5 passages. Each one presented different challenges, from formal news language to overlapping casual speech. Let's wrap up with 3 essential tips for improving your listening. First, embrace ambiguity. You don't need to understand every single word to grasp the meaning. Native speakers use context to fill in gaps all the time. Second, pay attention to intonation and stress. In English, how something is said often matters as much as what is said. Rising intonation might indicate a question or uncertainty, while emphasis on certain words reveals the speaker's main point. Third, expose yourself to various accents and speaking styles. Today, you heard British, American, Indian, and Scottish accents. The more variety you experience, the more flexible your listening becomes. Your homework: choose the passage you found most difficult and listen to it 3 more times this week. First time, focus on the general meaning. Second time, try to catch specific details. Third time, shadow the speakers. Pause and repeat what they say, matching their rhythm and intonation. Remember, listening is like a muscle. It gets stronger with regular exercise. Even native speakers sometimes say, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" So be patient with yourself. Thanks for joining me for these 30 minutes of intensive listening practice. Keep challenging yourself, and remember, every conversation you hear is making you a stronger English speaker. This is Taylor signing off. Until next time, keep listening actively.
Welcome to today's transformative episode. I'm Emma, and over the next 30 minutes, we're going to explore a powerful concept that will completely change how you approach learning English. It's called the upthrust effect, and once you understand it, you'll never look at challenges the same way again. But before we dive in, I want you to try something with me. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, release any doubts you have about your English abilities. Because today, we're going to transform those doubts into your greatest strength. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates the upthrust effect. Imagine you're at a pool, holding a beach ball underwater. The harder you push it down, the more forcefully it wants to rise. When you finally release it, it doesn't just float, it launches into the air. This is the upthrust effect in physics, but it's also a perfect metaphor for personal growth. Every time someone doubts you, every time you face pressure or criticism about your English, you're being pushed underwater. But here's the secret. That pressure is actually storing energy for your breakthrough. The deeper you're pushed, the higher you can rise, if you know how to harness that force. Think about your English learning journey. How many times have you felt discouraged? Maybe someone laughed at your accent. Perhaps you froze during a presentation. Or maybe you've been told you're not good enough yet. Each of these moments pushed you down, but they also gave you potential energy. Energy we're going to transform today. The upthrust effect teaches us 3 crucial principles. First, resistance creates strength. Just like muscles grow from resistance training, your English skills grow stronger when challenged. Second, pressure is temporary, but the strength you gain is permanent. Third, the moment you stop resisting and start using that pressure as fuel, you become unstoppable. Let's practice this concept with a simple shadowing exercise. I'll say a powerful affirmation slowly, then at normal speed. Repeat after me, feeling the confidence build. I transform doubt into determination. Now, faster. I transform doubt into determination. Every challenge makes me stronger. Every challenge makes me stronger. Excellent! You're already applying the upthrust effect. Let's explore deeper. Now, let's talk about something that might make you uncomfortable, and that's exactly the point. True progress in English or any skill happens outside your comfort zone. But here's what most people get wrong. They think the comfort zone is a safe space. It's not. It's actually the most dangerous place for your dreams. Your comfort zone is where your English stays stagnant. It's where you stick to the same vocabulary, avoid challenging conversations, and never quite reach fluency. But just outside that zone, that's where magic happens. Let me speak slowly and clearly for our shadowing practice. Repeat each line after me. My comfort zone is not my safe zone. Growth begins where comfort ends. I choose courage over comfort. Perfect. Now, let me share a personal story. When I first started teaching English to international students, I was terrified. I stayed in my comfort zone. using simple language, avoiding complex grammar explanations, but my students weren't improving as fast as they could. One day, a student asked me a question I couldn't answer. I felt that familiar push underwater, embarrassment, doubt, inadequacy. But instead of staying down, I used the upthrust effect and said, "That's an excellent question. I don't know the answer right now, but I'll research it and we'll explore it together tomorrow." That moment of vulnerability outside my comfort zone transformed my teaching. I started embracing questions I couldn't answer, complex topics that challenged me, and you know what? My students started learning faster, and I became a better teacher. Here's the truth about your comfort zone. It's not actually comfortable. It's familiar. There's a huge difference. Familiar feels safe, but it keeps you stuck. Real comfort comes from confidence, and confidence comes from competence, and competence comes from practice outside your familiar zone. Let's practice some challenging tongue twisters to push your pronunciation comfort zone. Don't worry about perfection. Focus on progress. She sells shells by the seashore. Let's try it faster. She sells seashells by the seashore. Now this one. The thoughtful teacher thoroughly taught theoretical theology. Again with confidence. The thoughtful teacher thoroughly taught theoretical theology. See? You just did something uncomfortable and you survived. More than survived. You grew. Every time you push past comfort, you expand your capabilities. Think about a baby learning to walk. They fall hundreds of times. Each fall is outside their comfort zone. But they don't develop a fear of walking. They develop strength, balance, and eventually mastery. Your English journey is the same. Each mistake, each uncomfortable conversation, each challenge is not a setback. It's a setup for your comeback. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Motivation is overrated. Yes, you heard that right. Everyone talks about staying motivated to learn English, but motivation is like weather. It comes and goes. What you need is something more reliable. You need discipline. Motivation says, "I'll study English when I feel like it." Discipline says, "I'll study English especially when I don't feel like it." Motivation is exciting, but temporary. Discipline is boring, but permanent. And guess what? Boring wins every single time. Let's practice this concept with shadowing. Repeat after me with conviction. Discipline is my superpower. I don't need to feel ready. I need to start. Consistency beats intensity. Think about brushing your teeth. Do you wait until you're motivated to brush your teeth? Of course not. You do it because it's a disciplined habit. Your English practice needs to become the same. Non-negotiable, automatic, done whether you feel like it or not. Here's the fascinating psychology behind this. When you rely on motivation, you're giving your emotions control over your progress. But emotions are unreliable CEOs. They make impulsive decisions. They're influenced by weather, sleep, what you ate for breakfast. Discipline, on the other hand, is like having a steady, reliable manager who shows up every day, rain or shine. Let me share the 2-minute rule that changed everything for my students. Instead of waiting for motivation to study for an hour, commit to just 2 minutes. That's it. 2 minutes of English practice. But here's what happens. Starting is the hardest part. Once you begin, you often continue. And even if you don't, you've maintained the discipline habit. Let's practice building discipline right now. We'll do a rapid-fire vocabulary exercise. I'll say a word and its meaning. You repeat both. Ready? Don't think, just repeat. Perseverance. Continuing despite difficulty. Resilience. Ability to recover quickly. Tenacity. Persistent determination. Fortitude. Courage in adversity. Grit. Passion and perseverance for long-term goals. Notice how those words all relate to discipline? That's not coincidence. Success in English, or anything, requires these qualities more than talent or motivation. Here's a practical framework for building discipline in your English learning. First, make it obvious. Put your English books where you can't miss them. Set phone reminders. Change your phone's language to English. Second, make it attractive. Pair English practice with something you enjoy. Watch your favorite shows in English. Read about topics you love. Third, make it easy. Start so small you can't say no. 1 sentence, 1 word, 1 minute. Fourth, make it satisfying. Track your progress, celebrate small wins, share victories with friends. Remember, motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going. And the beautiful paradox? When you practice discipline, motivation often follows. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Now let's explore one of the most powerful concepts for English mastery, getting just 1% better every day. This might sound too simple, but mathematics doesn't lie. If you improve by just 1% daily, after 1 year, you're not 365% better, you're 37 times better. That's the power of compound growth. But what does 1% better look like in English learning? It's learning 1 new word, having 1 short conversation, listening to 1 podcast segment, reading 1 paragraph. It's progress so small it feels insignificant, but so consistent it becomes unstoppable. Let's practice this concept through shadowing. Repeat after me, feeling the power of small steps. Small steps, daily taken, create extraordinary results. I don't need to be perfect, I need to be persistent. Today's 1% is tomorrow's foundation. The problem with most English learners is they try to improve 50% in 1 day, burn out, then do nothing for weeks. They're like someone trying to lose weight by exercising for 10 hours once a month. It doesn't work. But 15 minutes every day, that transforms everything. Let me tell you about Maria, one of my former students. She came to me frustrated, saying she'd been trying to learn English for years without success. When I asked about her study routine, she admitted she would study intensively for a week, then nothing for a month. We changed her approach to the 1% rule. Every day, she would learn 1 new phrase, have 1 English thought, write 1 sentence in her journal, listen to 1 song in English. That's it. 4 tiny actions. After 6 months, Maria wasn't just speaking English, she was thinking in English. She hadn't forced a massive change, she had grown into it, 1% at a time. Here's the neuroscience behind this. Your brain builds neural pathways through repetition, not intensity. Think of it like walking through a forest. Walking the same path once a month with heavy equipment won't create a trail. But walking the same path every day with light steps creates a clear pathway. That's what daily 1% improvement does to your brain's language centers. Let's practice building your 1% for today. We'll learn 5 phrasal verbs that native speakers use constantly. Repeat after me. Figure out, to understand or solve. Example, I need to figure out this grammar rule. Keep up, to maintain the same pace. Example, it's hard to keep up with native speakers. Break down, to divide into smaller parts. Let's break down this complex sentence. Come across, to find or encounter. Example, I came across an interesting podcast. Build up, to gradually increase. Example, I'm building up my vocabulary slowly. Congratulations! You just got 1% better. These 5 phrasal verbs are now part of your English arsenal. Tomorrow, add 5 more. In a year, you'll know 1,825 phrasal verbs. That's fluency territory. But here's the key. Don't try to be 2% better tomorrow. Stick to 1%. The magic isn't in the size of the improvement, it's in the consistency of the practice. This next section might be the most important thing you hear today. Stop waiting for permission to be good at English. Stop waiting for someone to tell you you're ready. Stop waiting for the perfect accent, the perfect grammar, the perfect vocabulary. You don't need external validation to validate your internal growth. Here's what nobody tells you. Confidence in English isn't earned through certificates or compliments. It's claimed through courage. Every time you speak English, regardless of mistakes, you're claiming your space as an English speaker. Let's practice claiming that space right now. Repeat these affirmations with the confidence of a native speaker. My English is valid and valuable. I don't need permission to communicate. My accent is part of my unique voice. I am already an English speaker. Did you notice I said you are an English speaker, not that you're becoming one? This isn't just positive thinking. It's identity shifting. When you identify as an English speaker, you act like one. When you act like one, you become one. The biggest trap I see learners fall into is waiting for some magical moment when they'll feel ready. They say things like, when my pronunciation is perfect, then I'll speak up in meetings. When I know more vocabulary, then I'll join English conversations. When I pass this exam, then I'll call myself fluent. But here's the truth. That moment never comes. There's always another level, another test, another person who speaks better. If you wait for external validation, you'll wait forever. Let me share something personal. I speak 3 languages besides English. In each one, I had to make a choice. Wait until I felt ready or start before I was ready. Guess which one led to fluency? Every single time, it was starting before I felt qualified. You know what's interesting? Native English speakers make mistakes constantly. They use wrong grammar, forget words, stumble over pronunciations, but they don't stop speaking. They don't question their right to communicate. Neither should you. Here's a powerful reframe. Instead of thinking, my English isn't good enough, think, my English is good enough for today, and tomorrow it'll be better. Instead of, I made a mistake, think, I learned something new. Instead of, they didn't understand me, think, I got practice explaining differently. Let's practice speaking with unshakable confidence. I'll give you common scenarios and you'll respond out loud with confidence, even if you make mistakes. Scenario, someone asks about your weekend plans. Take a moment and respond out loud now. Scenario, you're explaining your job to someone. Go ahead, explain what you do. Scenario, you're giving your opinion about climate change. Share your thoughts now. Did you notice something? You just had 3 English conversations without needing anyone's permission or validation. You didn't need a certificate. You didn't need a perfect accent. You just needed courage. The world doesn't need your perfect English. It needs your ideas, your perspective, your contribution in whatever English you have today. Your imperfect English expressing brilliant ideas is infinitely more valuable than perfect English saying nothing. Remember, every famous non-native English speaker you admire started exactly where you are. They didn't wait for validation. They validated themselves through action. Now it's your turn. Now let's make everything we've discussed practical and actionable. I'm going to give you a daily practice routine that incorporates the upthrust effect, comfort zone expansion, discipline over motivation, the 1% rule, and self-validation. Your daily English transformation routine. Morning. Start with power shadowing. Choose one paragraph from any English content. News, book, podcast transcript. Read it aloud 3 times. First time, slowly, focusing on pronunciation. Second time, normal speed, focusing on rhythm. Third time, with emotion and confidence. This pushes you outside your comfort zone first thing in the morning. Midday, the Fearless 5. Have 5 mini conversations in English. Order your coffee in English, even if just in your head. Think through your to-do list in English. Describe what you see around you in English. Send 1 text message in English. Leave 1 comment on social media in English. This builds discipline through small, consistent actions. Evening, reflection and growth. Write 3 sentences. 1 thing you learned today, your 1%. 1 mistake you made and what it taught you. 1 thing you'll do differently tomorrow. Let's practice the evening reflection right now. Repeat these sentence starters. Today, I learned that I made a mistake but this taught me. Tomorrow, I will courageously. This is just 15 minutes total per day, but it touches every principle we've discussed. You're not waiting for motivation. You're using discipline. You're not staying comfortable. You're growing. You're not seeking validation. You're creating it. Here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, commit to this routine no matter what. Sick? Do it. Tired? Do it. Busy? Do it. Remember, discipline is doing it, especially when you don't feel like it. Track your progress simply. Put an X on your calendar each day you complete the routine. After 30 days, you'll have visual proof of your discipline, and more importantly, you'll have transformed your English abilities and your mindset. As we close this transformational episode, I want you to remember this. Every challenge you face in learning English is not happening to you, it's happening for you. That pressure you feel, it's your upthrust effect building. That discomfort, it's growth in disguise. That doubt, it's fuel waiting to be ignited. You now understand what most English learners never discover. True fluency isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. It's not about giant leaps. It's about 1% improvements. It's not about external validation. It's about internal conviction. Let's end with one final shadowing exercise. These are your mantras for transformation. Repeat them with the confidence of someone who knows their destiny. I am unstoppable because I am consistent. I transform pressure into power. My discipline today creates my success tomorrow. I am already enough, and I'm getting better. My English journey is perfect because it's mine. Here's my final thought for you. Somewhere in the world, right now, someone with less talent than you, less time than you, and less resources than you is becoming fluent in English. The only difference? They're not waiting. They're not doubting. They're doing. The upthrust effect is real. The pressure you've been under has prepared you for this moment. You're like that beach ball pushed underwater by doubt, criticism, and fear. But now you know the secret. That pressure is your power. Release it. Rise. Soar. Your English journey isn't just about language. It's about becoming who you're meant to be. Every word you learn, every sentence you speak, every mistake you make is sculpting you into someone unstoppable. Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to be brilliant. You don't need validation to be valuable. You just need to show up tomorrow 1% better than today. This is Emma, reminding you that your doubts are just your greatness in disguise. Transform them. Use them. Let them launch you higher than you ever imagined possible. Keep practicing. Keep growing. And remember, the upthrust effect is always working in your favor. You've got this. Until next time, speak boldly, live courageously, and never forget, you're not just learning English, you're unlocking your unlimited potential.
Hello, and welcome to the Artificial Fluency Podcast. I'm your host, Emma, and today we have a special hour-long episode all about mindfulness and how it can revolutionize your language learning journey. Whether you're a beginner or approaching fluency, the principles of mindfulness can help you overcome common obstacles, reduce anxiety, and develop a deeper connection with English. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's begin this exploration together. Before we dive into the fascinating connection between mindfulness and language learning, let's first understand what mindfulness actually is. Many people have heard the term, but there's often confusion about what it really means. At its core, mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment with openness, curiosity, and without judgment. It's about being fully aware of where we are, what we're doing, and not being overly reactive to what's happening around us. Jon Kabat-Zinn, one of the pioneers who brought mindfulness to mainstream Western culture, defines it as paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. This simple but profound practice has roots in ancient meditation traditions, but has been adapted for modern life and backed by extensive scientific research. So why are we talking about mindfulness on a language learning podcast? The connection might not seem obvious at first, but as we'll explore today, bringing mindfulness into your language practice can transform not just how you learn, but also how you experience the entire process. Let's start with some vocabulary related to mindfulness that you'll find useful both for today's episode and for discussing this topic in English. I'll explain each term and use it in a sentence. First, awareness. This means noticing what's happening inside and around you. Practicing language with awareness means noticing when you make errors without becoming discouraged. Present moment refers to what's happening right now, not in the past or future. When speaking English, try to stay in the present moment rather than worrying about what to say next. Non-judgmental means observing without labeling things as good or bad. Taking a non-judgmental approach to your accent helps reduce speaking anxiety. Attention is the focus of your conscious mind. Directing your attention to how native speakers use phrasal verbs can improve your understanding. Acceptance means acknowledging reality without resistance. Acceptance of the challenges in learning English is the first step toward overcoming them. Compassion is showing kindness toward suffering, including your own. Self-compassion is essential when you make mistakes in your language journey. Now that we have this vocabulary foundation, let's explore the specific ways mindfulness can enhance your language learning experience. One of the biggest challenges language learners face is something we rarely talk about, the emotional aspect of learning. Have you ever felt your heart racing when asked to speak English in front of others? Or that sinking feeling when you can't understand a native speaker? Or maybe the frustration of forgetting vocabulary you thought you knew? These emotional responses aren't just uncomfortable, they actively interfere with learning. When we experience stress or anxiety, our brain's fight or flight response activates. Blood flows away from our prefrontal cortex, the thinking, learning part of our brain, and towards systems needed for survival. This biological response made perfect sense when humans needed to escape predators, but it's not helpful when trying to conjugate verbs or remember vocabulary. This is where mindfulness comes in. Research has shown that regular mindfulness practice actually changes the brain in ways that help us manage emotions and stress. A 2011 study at Harvard found that just 8 weeks of mindfulness practice created measurable changes in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system for threat. Participants showed reduced activation in this area and reported feeling less stressed. For language learners, this means that mindfulness can help create the optimal emotional state for learning. When you're calm and centered, your prefrontal cortex remains engaged, allowing you to think clearly, recall information more easily, and process new language more effectively. Now, let's get practical. How can you actually incorporate mindfulness into your language learning routine? I'll share 5 powerful techniques that you can start using today. The first technique is mindful listening. This practice transforms how you engage with English audio material, whether it's podcasts like this one, songs, films, or conversations. Here's how to practice mindful listening. Choose a short audio clip, perhaps 2-3 minutes long. Before pressing play, take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. As you listen, give the audio your complete attention. Notice when your mind wanders and gently bring it back to the sounds. Don't worry about understanding everything. Just observe the sounds, rhythms, and patterns of the language. What makes this different from regular listening practice is the quality of attention. Rather than straining to understand every word or becoming frustrated when you don't, you're training your brain to stay present with the language, noticing details you might otherwise miss. Many students report that after practicing mindful listening regularly, they begin to naturally pick up on subtleties of pronunciation and intonation that they
Many students report that after practicing mindful listening regularly, they begin to naturally pick up on subtleties of pronunciation and intonation that they previously couldn't hear. Your brain becomes better at distinguishing sounds that don't exist in your native language. I recommend starting with just 5 minutes of mindful listening daily, gradually increasing as you become more comfortable with the practice. Let's try a brief mindful listening exercise right now. I'm going to play a short paragraph, and I invite you to listen with full attention. Don't worry about understanding every word. Just notice the sounds, rhythm, and your own experience of listening. The art of mindfulness transforms ordinary experiences into extraordinary ones. When we pay attention to the small details, the feeling of a breeze on our skin,
the complex flavors in a simple meal, the subtle changes in another person's expression. We discover a richness in life that was always there, waiting to be noticed. The same principle applies to language. When we bring mindful attention to our practice, the language reveals its patterns, its music, and its beauty. How was that experience? Did you notice your mind wandering at any point? Did you observe any physical sensations as you listened? This level of awareness is exactly what we're cultivating through mindful listening. The second technique is mindful speaking. Many language learners experience anxiety when speaking, which can lead to the frustrating experience of knowing what to say, but feeling blocked or tongue-tied. Mindful speaking begins with awareness of your physical body before you start talking. Notice your posture, any tension in your shoulders or jaw, and your breathing pattern. Take a moment to feel your feet on the ground, which creates a sense of stability and presence. As you speak, pay attention to the physical sensations of forming the words. Feel the movement of your tongue, lips, and jaw. Notice the vibration in your throat and chest. This sensory awareness keeps you anchored in the present moment, rather than caught in worries about how you sound. Another aspect of mindful speaking is observing any self-critical thoughts without getting caught up in them. When you notice thoughts like, "My pronunciation is terrible," or "They're judging my grammar," simply acknowledge them with, "There's a judgmental thought," and gently return your attention to the physical experience of speaking. I recommend practicing mindful speaking first in low-pressure situations, perhaps recording yourself or speaking with a supportive language partner. As your comfort grows, you can bring this awareness into more challenging conversations. Many students report that mindful speaking not only reduces anxiety, but also improves their pronunciation as they become more aware of the physical aspects of producing sounds. Let's practice a brief mindful speaking exercise. I'll provide a simple prompt, and if you're in a place where you can speak aloud, I invite you to respond to it while practicing mindful speaking. If not, you can just imagine doing this exercise. The prompt is, describe your favorite place to relax. Before speaking, take 3 deep breaths, feel your feet on the ground, and notice any tension in your body, allowing it to release. As you speak, pay attention to the physical sensations of forming the words. Notice any judgmental thoughts that arise, acknowledging them without getting caught up in them. Focus on the experience of speaking rather than how good your English sounds. Even just 30 seconds of speaking with this kind of awareness can begin to shift your relationship with spoken English. Our third technique is mindful reading. Many language learners approach reading with the goal of finishing the text or understanding every word, which can create pressure and frustration. Mindful reading transforms this experience. Begin by choosing a text that's at an appropriate level for you, challenging enough to be interesting, but not so difficult that you need to look up every other word. Before you start reading, take a moment to center yourself with a few deep breaths. As you read, notice the tendency to rush or to get caught in trying to translate everything to your native language. When you find your mind racing ahead or struggling to grasp meaning, gently bring your attention back to the words on the page. Read at a pace that allows you to actually see each word. One particularly effective mindful reading technique is to read aloud slowly, feeling the shape of each word in your mouth. This engages multiple senses and creates a deeper connection with the language. Another approach is to read the same short passage several times, noticing new details with each reading. You might focus on different aspects. First, the general meaning, then specific vocabulary, then grammatical structures, and finally, the rhythm and flow of the language. Many students find that mindful reading leads to better comprehension and retention, as well as a more enjoyable experience with the language. Let's practice a brief mindful reading exercise. I'll share a short paragraph, and I invite you to read it slowly and mindfully, perhaps even aloud if you're in a place where you can do so. Learning a language is not just about mastering vocabulary and grammar. It's about entering a new world of expression, connecting with different ways of thinking, and expanding your own identity. Each new word you learn is not just information to memorize, but a tool that allows you to share more of yourself and understand more of others. The journey of language learning is as much about discovering yourself as it is about communicating with others. As you read, did you notice any tendency to rush? Were you able to stay present with each word? Did any particular phrases stand out to you? This awareness is what makes mindful reading such a powerful practice. The fourth technique we'll explore is mindful vocabulary practice. Traditional vocabulary methods often focus on quantity, how many words you can memorize. Mindful vocabulary practice emphasizes quality of attention and creating meaningful connections with fewer words. Instead of trying to memorize long lists, choose 5 to 7 new words that are relevant to your life and interests. For each word, take time to explore it fully. Say it aloud, feeling the shape of it in your mouth. Write it down slowly, noticing the movement of your hand. Create a personal example sentence that has emotional significance for you. You might also engage your imagination. Visualize a scene that represents the word, create a mental story featuring the word, or connect it with a physical gesture. These multi-sensory associations create stronger neural pathways for remembering the word. Another mindful approach is to notice related words and how they connect to concepts you already know. How does this new vocabulary fit into your existing knowledge network? This creates what learning scientists call elaborative encoding, which significantly improves retention. Many learners report that by studying fewer words with greater attention, they actually remember more and can use the vocabulary more naturally in conversation. Let's try a brief mindful vocabulary exercise with the word serene, S-E-R-E-N-E, which means calm, peaceful, and untroubled. First, say the word aloud slowly, serene. Notice how your mouth forms the sounds. Now, close your eyes if it's comfortable and create a mental image that represents serenity for you. It might be a quiet lake at sunrise, a peaceful garden, or any setting that embodies calmness for you. Next, connect the word to a personal experience. When have you felt serene? What were the physical sensations, emotions, and circumstances of that experience? Finally, create a meaningful sentence with the word. After practicing mindfulness for 10 minutes, I felt completely serene and ready to practice my English. This deep, multi-sensory engagement with a single word creates much stronger memory traces than quickly reviewing dozens of words. The fifth technique is mindful grammar practice. Grammar can be one of the most frustrating aspects of language learning, often leading to overthinking and anxiety when speaking. Traditional grammar study focuses on memorizing rules and doing mechanical exercises. Mindful grammar practice takes a different approach, emphasizing awareness and pattern recognition over memorization. Begin by choosing one grammatical structure to focus on, like the present perfect tense. Rather than starting with rules, expose yourself to many examples of this structure in authentic context, perhaps by reading a short story or listening to a dialogue where it appears frequently. As you encounter the structure, notice how it's used and what meaning it conveys. When does the speaker choose this form instead of another? What feeling or perspective does it express? This curious observation is very different from trying to apply memorized rules. Once you've developed this intuitive feeling for the structure, then look at the formal rule. You'll likely find that it makes much more sense because you've already begun to develop a feel for the pattern. When practicing, bring full attention to forming the structure correctly, noticing any resistance or confusion that arises. Rather than judging these difficulties, simply observe them with curiosity, like, oh, I notice I'm struggling with the word order here, or I see I automatically used simple past instead of present perfect. This mindful approach can transform grammar from a source of anxiety to an interesting exploration of how the language works. Let's practice mindful grammar with the short exercise focusing on the present perfect tense. I'll provide several examples of the structure in context. As you read or listen to them, pay attention to the feeling or meaning that this tense conveys, rather than trying to recall formal rules. I've lived in Paris for 3 years. She's never tried sushi before. They've just arrived at the airport. We've been studying English since January. He's already finished the assignment. What patterns do you notice? What kind of situations call for this tense? You might observe that it connects past events to the present moment in some way. This intuitive understanding, developed through mindful observation, provides a much stronger foundation than memorizing rules alone. Now that we've explored 5 specific mindfulness techniques for language learning, let's take a step back and look at how to integrate mindfulness more broadly into your learning routine. One powerful approach is to begin each study session with a brief mindfulness practice. Just 2 to 3 minutes of focused breathing creates a transition from your busy day to your learning time, helping your brain shift into a more receptive state. Here's a simple routine you might try. Sit comfortably and bring your attention to your breathing for about 10 breaths. Then, set a clear, positive intention for your study session, such as, I'm going to explore these new words with curiosity, or I will practice speaking with awareness and patience. This creates a purposeful, centered approach to your practice. Throughout your study time, build in short, mindful pauses. After completing an exercise or reading a passage, take 30 seconds to breathe and check in with yourself. Notice if you're becoming tense, frustrated, or distracted, and gently reset your attention before continuing. End your session with a brief reflection, acknowledging what you accomplished without judgment. This mindful bookending of your study time establishes a healthy relationship with the learning process. Let's practice a brief mindfulness exercise that you can use before studying. I'll guide you through it, and if you're in a place where you can close your eyes and participate, I invite you to do so. If not, just listen to the instructions and try it later. Begin by sitting comfortably, feet flat on the floor if possible. Allow your spine to be upright but not rigid. Take 3 deep breaths, exhaling fully each time. Now, allow your breathing to find its natural rhythm and bring your attention to the physical sensation of the breath entering and leaving your body. You might notice the feeling of air at your nostrils, the rising and falling of your chest, or the expansion and contraction of your abdomen. When you notice your mind wandering to thoughts, plans, or worries, gently bring your attention back to the breath. There's no need to criticize yourself when your mind wanders. This is what minds naturally do. Continue following your breath for a few moments. Now, set an intention for your English practice today. It might be to approach challenges with patience, to notice new aspects of the language, or simply to be present with the learning process. Slowly bring your awareness back to the room, perhaps wiggling your fingers and toes, and when you're ready, open your eyes if they were closed. This simple practice, taking just 2 to 3 minutes, can significantly change the quality of your study time. Now that we've explored 5 specific mindfulness techniques for language learning, let's take a step back and look at how to integrate mindfulness more broadly into your learning routine. One powerful approach is to begin each study session with a brief mindfulness practice.
Just 2 to 3 minutes of focused breathing creates a transition from your busy day to your learning time, helping your brain shift into a more receptive state. Here's a simple routine you might try. Sit comfortably and bring your attention to your breathing for about 10 breaths. Then set a clear, positive intention for your study session, such as, I'm going to explore these new words with curiosity, or I will practice speaking with awareness and patience. This creates a purposeful, centered approach to your practice. Throughout your study time, build in short, mindful pauses. After completing an exercise or reading a passage, take 30 seconds to breathe and check in with yourself. Notice if you're becoming tense, frustrated, or distracted, and gently reset your attention before continuing.
In the first half of our episode, we've covered the foundations of mindfulness for language learning and explored 5 specific techniques. Now, let's dive deeper into some of the challenges language learners face and how mindfulness can help address them. One of the most common obstacles is the inner critic, that judgmental voice in your head that comments on your performance, compares you to others, and often focuses on what you're doing wrong rather than right. Have you noticed this voice when you speak English? What kinds of things does it say? The inner critic typically makes statements like, "My accent sounds ridiculous. I should be more fluent by now. Everyone else in the class is better than me. I keep making the same mistakes over and over. Native speakers must think I'm unintelligent when I speak." These thoughts aren't just unpleasant, they actively interfere with learning by creating anxiety and self-consciousness that make it harder to take risks and practice freely. Mindfulness offers a powerful approach to working with the inner critic. The first step is simply becoming aware of these thoughts as they arise. With practice, you can learn to recognize critical thoughts as just thoughts, not facts or reality. The traditional mindfulness instruction is to notice the thought, label it, there's self-criticism, and then gently return your attention to whatever you were doing, whether speaking, listening, reading, or writing in English. Over time, this practice creates space between you and your thoughts. Rather than being completely identified with the inner critic, you develop the ability to observe it with some distance. You might even bring some curiosity or compassion to these thoughts. That's interesting. My mind is being really hard on me right now. I wonder what's behind that. Let's practice working with the inner critic through a brief exercise. Think of a recent situation where you felt self-critical about your English. Perhaps you made a mistake while speaking, couldn't understand something, or compared yourself negatively to others. First, notice the specific thoughts that arose in that situation. What exactly did your inner critic say? Now see if you can identify the emotions that accompanied these thoughts. Did you feel embarrassment, shame, frustration, or something else? Next, try rephrasing the critical thought with more kindness and perspective. For example, "I'm terrible at pronunciation" might become, "Pronunciation is challenging for many learners, and I'm still developing this skill." This isn't about positive thinking or denying difficulties. It's about relating to your experience with greater awareness and compassion, which creates a healthier learning environment. Another major challenge for language learners is the phenomenon known as the plateau, that frustrating period where, despite continued effort, you don't seem to be making progress. Many language learners experience this at the intermediate stage, which is sometimes called the intermediate plateau. The plateau often triggers a cycle of demotivation. You don't see progress, so you become discouraged, which leads to less effective practice, which results in even less progress.
Adding to the challenge, your awareness of the language has increased, so you're more conscious of your mistakes and limitations than you were as a beginner. Mindfulness offers several ways to navigate the plateau more skillfully. First, it helps you recognize that progress isn't always linear or immediately visible. By practicing present moment awareness, you can engage fully with your current learning experience without constantly evaluating whether you're getting better. Second, mindfulness cultivates equanimity, the ability to stay balanced in the face of both pleasant and unpleasant experiences, which helps you continue practicing consistently even when you don't feel the immediate reward of noticeable improvement. Third, the practice of non-judgment allows you to observe your current abilities without labeling them as good enough or not good enough. This creates a more objective view of where you actually are in your learning journey. Many students find that the plateau isn't actually a complete lack of progress, but rather a shift in how progress happens, becoming less obvious, but often deeper and more integrated. Mindfulness helps you appreciate these subtle changes that might otherwise go unnoticed. Here's a practice for working with the plateau experience. Take a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, list the aspects of English that feel challenging or stagnant right now. On the right side, note any small signs of progress or growth you've experienced in the past month, no matter how subtle. These might include understanding a few more words in a film without subtitles, feeling slightly more comfortable with a particular grammar structure, noticing patterns in the language that you didn't before, having slightly longer conversations before feeling tired, learning a few new expressions that you've successfully used. The key is to train your awareness to notice these small shifts, which are often obscured when we focus only on dramatic improvements. This balanced perspective keeps motivation alive during plateau periods. A third challenge many language learners face is something we might call compartmentalization, the tendency to separate language learning from the rest of life, treating it as just another subject to study rather than a living skill to integrate into your identity. This compartmentalization often leads to a disconnect between classroom learning and real-world use. You might perform well on exercises or tests, but freeze up in authentic conversations. Or you might find yourself translating in your head rather than thinking directly in English. Mindfulness practices can help bridge this gap by training you to bring awareness of the language into everyday life. Here are a few approaches that students have found particularly effective. First, practice language mindfulness during routine activities. Choose an everyday task like cooking, walking, or commuting, and narrate what you're doing or seeing in English, either out loud or mentally. This helps integrate the language into your normal experience rather than keeping it confined to study time. Second, create mindful triggers throughout your day. Specific cues that remind you to switch into English. For example, you might decide that every time you open a door, wait for an elevator, or wash your hands, you'll think in English for the next 30 seconds. These brief but frequent moments of language immersion add up significantly over time. Third, practice mindful language shifting, the transition between your native language and English. Notice what happens in your mind and body when you switch languages. Is there tension, excitement, a change in your sense of identity? This awareness itself helps make the transition more fluid over time. Let's practice integrating language into everyday life with a simple exercise. Choose an object you can see right now in your environment. It could be anything. A cup, a book, your phone, a plant. Now, for the next 30 seconds, observe this object carefully and describe it mentally in English. Notice its physical characteristics, its purpose, its history, your relationship with it, anything that comes to mind. This kind of practice, repeated throughout your day with different objects and experiences, gradually trains your brain to process everyday life directly in English rather than always filtering through your native language. So far, we've explored how mindfulness can enhance various aspects of language learning and help overcome common challenges. Now let's look at how to develop a consistent mindfulness practice that supports your language goals. Many people are enthusiastic about mindfulness initially, but struggle to maintain a regular practice. The key is to start small and integrate mindfulness into your existing routines rather than trying to add another major commitment to your busy life. Begin with just 3 to 5 minutes of mindfulness daily, perhaps first thing in the morning or right before your language practice. There are many excellent apps that offer guided mindfulness exercises, or you can simply set a timer and focus on your breathing. Once you've established this basic practice, look for opportunities to bring mindful awareness into your language activities. Remember the techniques we discussed earlier: mindful listening, speaking, reading, vocabulary practice, and grammar study. You don't need to use all of these approaches at once. Maybe choose one to focus on each week. Another effective strategy is to join or create a mindful language learning group. Meeting regularly with others who share your interest in this approach provides accountability, encouragement, and the opportunity to practice mindful speaking in a supportive environment. Remember that mindfulness itself is a skill that develops gradually with practice. You might not notice dramatic benefits immediately, but with consistent attention, you'll likely observe subtle shifts in your relationship with language learning. Less anxiety, more enjoyment, deeper engagement, and eventually, more natural fluency. As we begin to wrap up our exploration of mindfulness for language learning, I'd like to share a simple daily practice plan that integrates the approaches we've discussed. Morning. Begin with 3 to 5 minutes of mindful breathing to center yourself for the day. Throughout the day, use mindful triggers to briefly think or speak in English during routine activities. Language study time. Start with 2 minutes of mindful breathing and setting an intention. Choose one aspect of language to practice mindfully, perhaps vocabulary one day, listening another. And with a brief reflection on what you noticed during practice. Evening. Take 5 minutes to journal in English about your day, bringing mindful awareness to the writing process. Weekly, join a language exchange or conversation group where you can practice mindful speaking with others. This integrated approach weaves mindfulness and language learning throughout your day rather than treating them as separate activities. Before we conclude, I'd like to address some common questions and misconceptions about mindfulness for language learning. Do I need to meditate for hours to see benefits? Absolutely not. Research shows that even short, regular practices can create significant changes in the brain. Start with just a few minutes daily and build gradually if you wish. Is mindfulness religious or spiritual? While mindfulness has roots in contemplative traditions, the practices we've discussed are secular and supported by scientific research. People of any faith or no faith can benefit from mindfulness techniques. I'm too busy to add another practice to my routine. Rather than viewing mindfulness as another task on your to-do list, think of it as a quality of attention you bring to activities you're already doing. Even bringing mindful awareness to 3 breaths several times a day can begin to shift your experience. My mind is too active to meditate. Having an active mind is completely normal and doesn't mean you're bad at mindfulness. The practice isn't about stopping thoughts, but rather noticing them without getting caught up in them. Every time you notice your mind has wandered and bring it back to the present moment, that's the practice working, not failing. Will mindfulness make me too relaxed to push myself in learning? Mindfulness isn't about passive relaxation, but rather about engaged, aware presence. Many people find they actually study more effectively and push themselves in healthier ways when practicing mindfulness, because they're more aware of both their capabilities and limitations. As we come to the end of today's episode, I'd like to leave you with a reflection on the deeper purpose of language learning. Beyond the practical benefits of being able to communicate in English, learning a new language offers a profound opportunity for personal growth and expanded consciousness. When you learn a new language, you're not just acquiring a skill, you're developing a new lens through which to see the world. Each language encodes particular ways of thinking, feeling, and relating that shape the experience of its speakers. By entering into English, you gain access to these new perspectives. Mindfulness enhances this journey by helping you fully experience the language rather than just study it. When you bring aware presence to your practice, you notice subtleties of meaning, emotional resonances, and cultural contexts that might otherwise pass you by. Perhaps most importantly, both mindfulness and language learning invite you to step outside your habitual patterns, to become aware of how you normally perceive and interact with the world, and to explore new possibilities. Both practices involve a willingness to be a beginner, to make mistakes, to feel uncomfortable, and to gradually develop new capacities through patient attention. In this sense, mindful language learning isn't just about becoming fluent in English, it's about becoming more fully human, more aware, more connected to yourself and others. And that, I believe, is the greatest gift that both mindfulness and languages have to offer. Thank you for joining me for this special hour-long exploration of mindfulness for language learning. I hope you've discovered approaches that resonate with you and that you'll experiment with in your own practice. Next week, we'll return to our regular 30-minute format with an episode about English idioms related to nature, expressions like the early bird catches the worm and barking up the wrong tree. Until then, I encourage you to bring mindful awareness to your language journey, moment by moment, breath by breath. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with fellow language learners who might benefit. And remember, the path to fluency isn't just about how much you study, it's about how you show up for the learning process, with awareness, patience, curiosity, and compassion. This is Emma from Artificial Fluency, wishing you mindful moments and joyful discoveries on your language journey. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.